Hi folks, it's James Garbett and Denny Dumas here. Today we're doing a video on strategies for pricing a listing. Our goal is to give you some advice, some feedback, and let you know what we think about when we're coming up with a list price for a property. So, first thing we ask ourselves is how desirable is this property? And when we're breaking this down, let's talk about A's, B's, and C's. A's are very desirable properties. There's not many of them. They're top tier neighborhoods or streets. They're more rare than other property types, and they're fairly desirable in almost any market. B's, let's call this your average listing. Maybe it's a nice home on a busy street, or a mediocre home on a mediocre quiet street, or your typical 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. And C's, let's call that your less desirable properties, or ones that have niche buyers. So this might be a teardown home, a fixer-upper, a very busy street, or a condo facing right into a SkyTrain. Whatever it is, it has a major negative or limited buyer pool for it. Denny?
The next thing we're going to look at is what is the market currently doing for that specific property. We'll also look at the seasonality of the business as a whole as well throughout the year. Seasonality meaning early in the year, we may look at pricing a home on the higher end because we've got lots of good market behind us in February, March, April. Towards the end of the summer, often the market slows, so we may need to be a little bit more aggressive if the seller's urgency is there. In terms of what the market is doing for that specific property, in the last couple of years we've kind of seen a little bit of everything. We've seen climbing markets where each month is better than the last and the seasonality of the year doesn't really come into effect. We are now seeing a little bit of a down market where properties that sold 3-4 months ago, we may not be able to reach those similar sale prices again. And we also see a transitioning market, which typically happens towards late summer in kind of a neutral non-climbing market, or late in the year, November, December.
Next, we're going to look at seller's urgency. If a seller has bought and has to sell in a quick time frame, that's going to affect our decision on list price. Whereas if a seller's holding a 20-year rental and has no urgency at all, that's a different story. So, how desirable the property is, what the market's doing at the time, and how urgent is the seller. And when we come to our pricing suggestions, let's talk about just 3 simple options. You price it, and this is under the assumption that you have data that shows you a good idea of what the value is for the home because there's recent comparable sales. So, under that assumption, you have the option of pricing it in line with the latest sale at market value. You have the option of pricing it 5% above market value, and you have the option of pricing it 5% below market value. And there's different reasons for doing all 3. So, let's try to give some examples here. Right now, we're doing this November 2018. It's a down market. Denny, I'm going to give you a scenario.
I like it.
Okay, you got a B property, 2-bed, 2-bath condo, generic, box in the sky, inside unit. They make tons of these. How do you price it right now? It's a 2-bed, 2-bath. Let's call it $600K.
Yeah, that type of property is still pretty active, but we definitely want to look at the seasonality, which is early to mid-November 2018. So our suggestion for a price or a sale that's going to happen this year is going to be at market value or slightly below. If you're pricing something that is generic, that the market has slowed quite a bit for in the last 6 months, above market value, you're likely going to have a frustrating experience, especially late in the year like we are now, and there's a good chance that that listing is going to roll over into the new year.
You know, I guess I failed to mention my urgency, didn't I?
You did.
That was a great answer, but what if I had to sell? What if I have no other option? I have to sell. What do you do in November 2018?
And we've got a couple of those right now, so we've been through this recently.
Hint, hint.
I mean, at market value is probably the highest that you'd want to go if you needed to move it in the next couple of weeks in this current market. But you're probably pricing just below market value, just below that last sale, in order to try to get as much activity as possible in this first week or 2.
Okay, fire one my way. Give me a scenario.
Let's talk about what we experienced in 2016, 2017. I don't know if we'll ever see a market like that again, but what we saw as a climbing market, it seemed like every sale was better than the last. So let's go with a C property, which is a non-desirable property or something really negative about it in a climbing market like middle of 2016.
Do you want to give me a month just so I can put myself in the
Let's
moment?
say May
Okay,
2016.
May.
We're just starting to see.
That's a zoo.
Well, we've maybe had
Zoo.
3 months of super activity.
And just to be clear, in May 2016, we were like bananas. Like we didn't know what was going on. The market was insane. So C property, this is a hot month we're talking about. Really, there's no point on pricing a C property below market value in a climbing market because it's always a risky strategy. Often C properties have a lot of negatives with it. You kind of want to tell people what to pay. In a May 2016 market, there's nothing available. Everything sells in 1 week. You tell people when it's going to sell. So in theory, if you priced it high and it didn't work out that week, you could take it off the market and give it another shot the next month or 2 weeks down the road. So for a C property in May 2016, I'd lean towards pricing it at market value with the intent of going for multiple offers and hoping it works out, or I'd price it 5% above market value under the expectation that the seller's willing to give us a couple months to try things out. So that would be less urgency would be the only reason for pricing it above. Otherwise, at market value is always a safe bet. All right. Another scenario, Danny. I'm going to give you a hard one.
Let's hear it.
January's around the corner.
Okay.
Everyone wants to list in January, but you have no clue what the market's going to do. You have an A property coming up. They want to list in January. You came off a weird fall.
Yeah.
We're talking January 2019. A property. What do you do?
What's the seller's urgency?
Oh, seller's urgency. Jeez. You know what? Seller's going to give you time.
Okay.
You know, there's market ahead of them. They haven't bought because that means they would probably have bought in December, which is rare. So a more likely scenario is they want to relocate, and they have a little bit of time to do it because they don't know where they're going.
Typically, inventory is very low when we round the corner of a new year into January, February. When you've got an A-type property that is desirable in any market, and you don't really know what's going on yet that year because we're just coming off of December, Christmas time, and New Year's, our suggestion likely is price it a touch high, price it a little bit over some recent sales from the fall, because we've got some time to work with. Early in the year, you've got a lot of good months ahead of you, and in this example, the sellers aren't in a rush to sell, so we'd likely be suggesting pricing just above market value and hoping that all the desirable factors of that property still get you a good offer early on.
I think we should mention here, if the seller has urgency in any way, there is never a reason to price it above market value. You know, you can't mess around. Often seller urgency comes because they've bought before they sold. And in that event, it is either pricing it at market value or below to get clean or multiple offers.
Yeah.
Fire one more scenario my way. You got one in mind?
Let's say we've had a typical spring where January, February, low inventory, March, April, May, a lot more comes onto the market. Usually those are very active months. And then we see June, July typically tend to slow down. So let's say we've got an anxious seller who maybe has bought or maybe is downsizing that is listing their B-type property. So a good home on a quiet street, maybe just not in the best neighborhood in the city. So late summer or early to late summer, B-type property, and they need to sell.
They need to sell. These are the anxious ones. Let's assume you're talking about July 1st. We get that call July 1st, and they want to get it on the market. And we always get a little terrified of August because we have no clue what August is going to bring.
Yeah.
So if it's a B property, it's a transitioning market? Or
we had a typical spring that was active, and now we're just starting to feel a slowdown.
Okay. I'm going to say if there's a lot of if there's a lot of comparable inventory in the market for B property in a July 1st market and the seller is urgent, I would price it 5% below market. If there's no inventory or if it's a mediocre listing, average listing, but there's very little competitors or competition out there for similar product in that neighborhood, in that price point, I would go at market. I would be nervous going at market at that time of the year. I'm always nervous that time of year going at market, but I typically make that call based on direct competition.
Yeah.
And if we priced it at market on after July 1st, we'd be talking about 2 weeks on market. If it doesn't work, we're going 5% below. I am scared of August markets when Julys are slow. That's my answer. So to kind of sum up a few highlights, for a C property, the only time to price it high is in a climbing market that's strong, and you have a lot of market behind you. So it might be early in the year and less urgency. C properties in a flat market or a down market usually at most need to be priced at market value, because in a down market they hardly move, and you're usually taking a big hit. B properties, well, seasonality is big.
For sure.
Seasonality, market timing is big. If you're early in the year and you don't have urgency, you can dance and try a higher price. But if you're urgent, don't mess around. Anytime there's urgency, don't go above market value. The A's, those are the tough ones for us, because sometimes you get an A that hits a home run out of the park with a massive sale price. So an A property in a climbing market, you can sometimes do anything. You can sometimes price those 5% below and get 20 offers. You can price them at market. Doesn't matter. You're getting a ton of offers. You can price them above, and you get like 5 offers, but you're still getting a ton of offers. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense to you. Denny, anything you want to add?
No, that was a pretty good summary. I think we touched most of it there.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, guys. That's all for now. Cheers.